Hi guys, this is Mr. Tan, and today we're looking at hospitality operations, and we're still focusing on the hotel industry, really looking at the front of house and accommodation services, and we're trying to review the managerial effectiveness. So this all leads to maximizing the revenue. But how do you maximize the revenue? Is by managing the effectiveness of your staff. And there are various theories and principles involved here that one could consider to try to get the maximum out of your staff in terms of productivity, which leads to managerial effectiveness. Sessions overview, training, managerial behavior and effectiveness, perception and communication, client services and motivation. So we'll be looking at various theories, X and Y theory, Maslow, Herzberg, ERG theory, and comparing them and so on and so forth, and see what they mean in terms of how you treat your staff and why you should perhaps employ some of these things to get the best out of your staff. So discussion, front office roles. How does a hotel create revenue opportunities? What is the role of the front office in a hotel? So in the previous slides, we've looked at the role of the front office, specifically at the receptionist front office, and what they do in terms of the pre-reservations and arrivals, occupancy, and then departure. How is the front of house department involved in creating and maximizing revenue opportunities? So, what were some of the things, can you remember, in terms of upselling, in terms of the way staff actually treat customers at different stages of the customer life cycle or going through the hotel? Okay, training manager behavior and effectiveness. Good people management equals financial success. Numerous management theories, basically discuss this, and different personalities, different businesses suit different styles. So here we're talking about various management theories, and to look at the needs of people and why people do the things they do. In other words, is a happy worker a productive worker, or productive worker a happy worker? In my estimation, I think that a happy worker is a productive worker. So really, we need to look at what makes employees happy. Why do we need to look at what makes employees happy? Because if people are generally happier, then generally they're more motivated. If people are more motivated, then they're more productive. So they're being more efficient and effective, giving a better service, doing more work. And they're doing that because they actually want to do it. So this actually adds to the effectiveness of the hotel in terms of financial success. So this is the reason why it's so important to view it from that perspective. Management theories, you've got theory X. This is the carrot and stick approach. Assumes people are lazy. They avoid responsibility, and motivation only occurs at psychological and security levels, at the bottom levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Direction and control through centralized system of organization and exercise of authority. So here, if you see your employees as theory X, then, and you see the people as being very lazy and avoid responsibilities, then you need to keep a closer eye on them. You need to check what they're doing, and you need to monitor all their efforts. So it's more time consuming if you see your staff as theory X. Theory Y, integration of the individual and organization goals. And this assumes that people work is as natural and important as rest. Will work towards achieving outcomes they are set. Seek out responsibility, intellect not fully utilized, capacity for creativity, and motivation at all levels. And it's the best way to to elicit cooperation and to get people to do things without having to be told to do it, and also to learn from training in terms of certain levels of performance and so on and so forth to try and meet those levels of performance. And here, if you see your workers as theory Y, then you're giving them more responsibility. You're giving them more latitude to go and achieve what they need to achieve, and you don't have to keep such a tight control of them, because you can be rest assured that employees who are theory Y will do what they need to do in terms of meeting their performance targets, given the time that they have, if it's possible to do it within those time frames that you've given. Exploitative, authoritative leadership styles. Decisions imposed. You're told what to do. Little or no teamwork, because no teamwork, there's no communication. It's not a democracy. It's authoritative. Autocratic leadership style. Responsibility at the top of the organization hierarchy. Benevolent authoritative. Condescending leadership. There's a reward system. Limited teamwork and motivation. Responsibility at middle management level, of the organization. Consultative. Here's consultative now. You're being consulted, so you can actually feel a little bit more important because you feel that your views may be listened to. Here you've got trust in subordinates, reward based on motivation, but requires employee involvement, teamwork to an extent, vertical and horizontal communication, which is good because you feel that you have a say, and then maybe it's important in terms of what you're saying and people are listening to you. Participative leadership styles, trust and confidence, goal orientated, teamwork, communication, and responsibility standard. Again, you're participative. You're allowing people to participate in the decision making process, therefore making people feel more important and therefore more motivated, and an increasing motivation to achieve their goals. So management by objectives. There's another management. You decide the objectives. Set the performance standards. Determine responsibility. Evaluate performance against standards. Take corrective, supportive action. So again, those are the objectives. So management by objectives. Okay. Praise, reward, promote, advise, train, and punish. Okay. And the outside, you've also got auto objectives and auto standards, depending upon what's happening. So contingency, and it's not set, but it's moving. The effective management of people. We look at these things and we think to ourselves, well, these sound reasonable. So basic managerial philosophies: fair and equitable treatment, emphasis of end results, staff and customer satisfaction, positive action on an individual basis, involvement, and availability, consideration, respect and trust, the culture of management, recognition of credit. Again, you look at some of these things and they seem obvious, and yet, in the companies that you worked for, have you seen some of these things to the contrary of these? Fair and equitable treatment. Everyone wants to be treated fairly and equitable, and yet people don't. Consideration, respect, and trust. So again, there's one thing pointing these things out. There's another point about actually doing these things. And also, what type of leadership style do you have? Do you see yourself as autocratic, democratic, participative, consultative, transformational? How do you see yourself as a leader? Which again would kind of affect these effective management of people type headings. Golden rule management. Created by Mary Kay Ash from the Mary Kay Cosmetics. And do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people fairly, as they deserve. Make the person feel important, never too busy. Again, there's other management motivation theories and and tests that have been trials that have been done. If you look at the Hawthorne studies, which took a group of women out of the factory, and they wanted to find out how they could actually make these women more productive. So what they did was they took them out and then they took them into a room to see their productivity, and they increased the light, and the productivity increased. So the productivity increased. They thought, excellent, all we've got to do is to increase the lighting. But as a controlled test, they also decreased the light. They decreased the light to such an extent where people couldn't actually see what they were doing. And what happened? Did the productivity go up, go down, stay in the middle? In fact, the productivity went even higher than when it was light. So why was this? And it was very simple. They were made to feel important because they were taken out of the factory and put into a controlled environment. They felt important, and because they felt important, their productivity increased. So again, a simple thing by Mary Kay Ash, make people feel important, because people are important. So you should make time for them and listen to what they have to say. Motivate through praise, but it can't just be praise for the sake of giving praise. It's got to be praise that is deserving, and it's got to be shown that you are sincere in terms of you giving praise, and it can't be just given out like candy. Encourage feedback. Again, not many people are very good listeners, but feedback is very good to help you develop as an individual as well, and even to help managers develop. Criticism, within praise. Open door policy. It's nice to have that, to feel that you've got an open door policy where you can go and see your manager or manageress, and so that you feel that you're being listened to. Everyone wants to be listened to. Help people to achieve their goals. Again, if you take Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm sure you've studied, moving up in terms of self-esteem and self-actualization, which is also reflected in ERG theory as well. ERG theory, in terms of the top levels of their pyramid. Don't hide behind managerial effectiveness. Research methods to measure managerial effectiveness. Which methods would you use? Do different methods suit different management methods? I mean, for me personally, I think that you should be able to adopt different management styles: autocratic, democratic, participative, consultative, transformational, at different times and different points. And so different circumstances and different situations require a different leadership style. But still, you can employ a lot of those qualities within those leadership styles. Maybe not all of them, but you can employ a lot of them still. Client culture. A culture within and across an organization that places the relationship with a key client as key to growth and profitability of the organization, and one which is totally supported, resourced, implemented and managed by senior personnel in all areas of the business. Client culture, very important. I remember working for a company called Metro Products, and our biggest customer was Halfords. So all departments across the company had to meet Halford's needs in terms of quality control, in terms of the sales department, in terms of the marketing department, supplying them with point of sale material and videos, and so on and so forth. So it wasn't just one person going in to see the buyer, but it was across departments trying to meet the needs of Halfords in terms of our products that they were taking on. Client services. Establish customer orientated culture. Very, very important. Customer is king. Manage client risk. Introduce controls and procedures to ensure performance standards. Very, very important. Performance standards to be able to measure. And again, we've done total quality management. There's lots of total quality management tools that can help you ensure that performance standards are maintained and surpassed. Effective complaint handling. How do we implement this? Choice of personnel, very important, getting the right person. Adequate training and development, you need that, because not everyone knows how to do everything. Identify and deal with problems before the customer identifies them. Manage and monitor service levels. Motivation. What do you understand motivation to be? What is motivation? What motivates you? how to motivate your workplace. What constitutes motivation and reward in the workplace. Verbal gestures, which are intangible. Written objects, which are tangible. So again, I talked about this earlier. Why motivate and reward your workforce. What are the positive and negative aspects of motivating and rewarding your workforce. um, as a manager, what would you hope to achieve by using motivation and reward? As a subordinate, how would you respond to motivation and reward? The Hawthorne experiments revisited. I mean, for me personally, I've had many staff who I've managed in many companies. When the first company I had, there was just myself in the department. Then the department grew to 10. I was managing 10 members, including myself, 11, 10 members of staff. And all the companies I worked for, I've had staff working for me. Even when I worked for LCCA, I've had lecturers working for me. And you want to treat people in the right way. You want to treat people fairly and equally. You want to listen to them. You want to set targets. You want to try and train and do all of these things. And by doing these things, I found that staff will work as a theory Y type member of staff and work on their own bat and achieve your objectives to a very, very good standard and go above and beyond what is necessary without you having to even ask. They will do what you need to do. So that's what I personally experience. So as a subordinate, how would you respond to motivation and reward? I mean, yes, motivation, in terms of all those other aspects is good, but also being rewarded for what you've achieved as well and for what you're doing, which adds to the reflection in terms of you knowing that you're being recognized for what you're doing, not just a verbal praise. Appropriateness of rewarding your workforce. When would you reward and motivate your workforce? When wouldn't you reward your workforce? And maybe consider the reasons why. I like rewarding the workforce. I mean, if we looked at so many different companies, rewarding the workforce appropriately to achieve specific objectives and being objectives led can be a positive thing. But then on the downside, you could say to yourself, well, if you're rewarding everyone, they should be doing that job anyway. So that's the other side of the coin. And if you're paying out more money to staff in terms of rewards, then it's costing you an expense on a profit and loss account and therefore reducing your profit. But on the other side, it could be reducing your costs because you're becoming more efficient and effective. So there are always pros and cons of each. Motivation, what you driving force behavior or action to achieve your desired goal, which provides fulfillment. And feedback, needs or expectations to meet the needs. Okay, again, what are your individual needs? And are you the right person in that job that you actually want to achieve certain things? So when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the basic bottom, you have the psychological needs, breathing, food, sleep, water. Then the next level is safety needs, security, morality, family, health. Love and belonging needs, friendship, family. Then self-esteem needs, confidence, achievements, and self-actualization at the top. Again, and what Maslow was saying was that you can't actually reach the higher needs unless you've actually satisfied the lower needs, the psychological and safety needs, before you can actually move up to esteem and self-actualization. Because your mind will be constantly on, where are you going to get enough sleep? Are you going to get water? Are you going to get food? Do you have the basics to survive? If you don't have the basics to survive, then you can't actually move up. So that's what Maslow was arguing. But even this has repercussions for work. So if we know that there are psychological and safety needs, so we've met the lower basic needs, then love and belonging, you can create that in the workplace in terms of meetings, in terms of social events, in terms of days out, to create a nice atmosphere within workplaces which are predominantly low paid but can be fun and exciting, where there is lots of love and belonging. And then you can move up in terms of advancement, in terms of supervisors, assistant managers, operations managers, general managers, in terms of achievement and respect by others, and then self-actualization. So Herzberg also is another, the Herzberg's two-factor theory in terms of his hygiene factors and motivating factors. And what Herzberg was basically saying was that you have various factors which motivate people. So someone can feel motivated, but at the same time as being motivated, you can be a little bit unhappy because you can say, well, there are hygiene factors that make you slightly unhappy because you can be motivated. Yes, you have a personal growth, job interest, but then perhaps you're not getting paid what you think you should be paid at that rate for what you're doing, and so on and so forth. So, this balances it out. So again, dissatisfaction and demotivation. Um, to not dissatisfied but not motivated, but positive satisfaction and motivation. But for me personally, I don't think that, I think that you can still be motivated and slightly dissatisfied. See, this model is kind of suggests that you move on from one to the other. You're either dissatisfied and demotivated, not dissatisfied but not motivated, but positive satisfaction and motivation. But I believe you can be motivated and dissatisfied to some degree as regards to rate of pay because you feel you should be getting more. But at the same time, you're still motivated because you're doing things that you want to do in terms of career advancement and personal growth. So I think there's another aspect to the Herzberg model. Uh, if we look at the ERG theory, so you've got the um, existence level, which is probably similar to the psychological and safety needs, and then you've got the interaction, affection, love, and competition, which is similar to the love and belonging, and up to the self-esteem needs, and then you have the in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then you have the growth, which is kind of like halfway between the self-esteem and the self-actualization in direct comparison to the Maslow hierarchy of motivation. So if we compare them, we can see here where they kind of like relate from model to model. So links between motivation and rewards. Well, you at the top you've got your corporate objectives and your productivity to achieve those corporate objectives. But what makes you really productive? What makes you go over and beyond to want to do more to achieve those corporate objectives? Well, you've got extrinsic rewards. You've got the work environment that you could enjoy, the job performance. Intrinsic rewards leads to motivation to performance. And so you've got this kind of like different links which could have different effects in terms of motivating you to achieve and to make you productive or more productive. So what makes someone more productive than someone else? So motivation, activity. Based on these models, what are the key items which motivate people at work? What would you say that motivates people at work? Will there be situations when money is not the key motivator? What do you think? Motivation. Some writers argue that people do not lack motivation, only the right triggers to motivate them. Some claim that motivation only comes from within, and attempts from other people to motivate an individual have little lasting influence. Individual research. At the front of house manager of a busy hotel, what management style would be most suited to your personality and getting the task done? So if you're at the front of house and you're the manager there, what management style would you adopt and why? How would you train the employees to focus on the consumer? How would you motivate employees to hit the target you need? So in conclusion, we've looked at management styles, importance of the customer, and motivation, and different motivational theories from Maslow, ERG theory, Herzberg's two-factor theory, and various others, X and Y theory. And we've even talked about the Hawthorne studies and so on and so forth. So thank you today from Mr. Tan.